Alright, welcome again. You may remember when we talked about the gains of dimensional modeling, we mentioned that it provides to store historical data. So that brings us the concept of slowly changing dimensions. Slowly changing dimensions are the most commonly used technique take place in dimensional data warehouses when you wish to capture the changing data within the dimension over the time. For example, a company may annually reorganize their sales organization or recast their product hierarchy for each retail season. Slowly typically means after several months or even years. Indeed, some of the dimensional attributes changes more frequently than others. It may be better to model them in separate tables. So in this example, it is possible that a customer may be associated with a particular customer group, but then reclassified into a different group. For example, Jim Black would switch from corporate to retail customer group. So the organization want to be able to analyze the historical sales data that occurred when the customer was assigned to the original customer group, as well as more recent sales data. It means that organizations want to observe sales transaction of Jim Black when he was in a corporate customer group and also want to see his sales behaviors after he assigned to a group of retail. So there are three methodologies in here, type 1, 2 and 3, that can help on the slowly changing dimensions. Okay, the first one is the type 1. So in here, you simply override the existing values with the new information. And we just update the customer group of Jim Black from corporate to retail. And updating the record gives us an easy maintenance process and limits the growth of dimension table to only new records. But the drawback is we lose the historical value because the dimension will always contain the current values. So we are not going to be able to catch the sales information of Jim Black when he was in a corporate group. So this approach does not work with the historical reports, and the reports run before the update will no longer match the reports done after the update for the same time frame. So that is why type 1 approach is often used for data corrections, for example removing the special characters or correcting the spelling errors. So we're going to look at type 2 that can help us to capture the history of the values. So in this methodology, we capture the attribute changes by adding new row with the new surrogate key to dimension table. By this way, all history of dimension changes is kept in the database. So you see in here we added additional columns as start date and end date, and that shows us in which time interval the relevant specification is valid. For example, Jim Black was in corporate customer group until July 2018, but then he moved to retail and we get additional record in the table. So you may notice in here that the end date for the current record usually is set to value the year of 9999, and also the current flag that shows if the relative record has the recent status or not. There could be only one record for a specific element with the current indicator set to yes. So current flag column is an optional that makes our life easier in the reporting layer. But the main emphasis in here is we have a new column as SID, and that includes the surrogate key. But what is surrogate key? So let's do a bit detailed analysis in here. Surrogate keys are generally used design standards in data warehouses and primarily used in dimension tables where we need to track the historical values. It is sequentially generated unique numbers created by the relational database management systems and attach each record in the table. For example, customer table has a natural key, in other words, business key, which is named customer ID. So to keep track of the customer group changes by the time, we need to include multiple versions of this customer record in our table. But using the customer ID as our primary key is simply not an option since it will not uniquely identify each record, as we already see here that the customer ID 100 is replicated. So that is why we need a surrogate key column which includes the system generated sequential numbers in order to make each record unique. But there are also other reasons why the surrogate key is helpful for us. Business keys usually have a business meaning in the OLTP system, such as customer ID, product code, or social security number. And these keys depends on the business settings or requirements And if these will change, then all tables using those keys need to be updated. And that would cause intensive operation in the data warehouse environment. And business keys are often reused after some time, and it will cause data integrity issues in the database. So therefore, using the surrogate key, the eliminated dependency to source system business keys. So even there is a change or update in the source system business key, so it doesn't impact the surrogate keys in our data warehouse structure. And on the other hand, the critical point is the performance. So the last thing, when compared to surrogate keys, business keys are usually in bigger size, and sometimes they will be in the type of text or other meaningful value. So therefore, creating joins between facts and dimensions via these columns is not going to provide the best response times. By using surrogate key, we can select a data type, integer, which offers high performance. So as we get general idea about surrogate keys, so now jump back to where we left off. So other critical point in here is we need to consider is introducing changes to dimensional model in type 2 could be very expensive databases operations. So it is not recommended to use it in tables where a new attribute could be added in the future. On the other hand, when you defining your dimension tables and also would like to keep history, it is always better to separate these fields to different dimension tables. So the frequency of the change is a good identification for us when we're splitting dimensions into the tables. So the last one is the type 3. This is a seldom used type of slowly changing dimension. So in this type of slowly changing dimension, you add a second column to store the most recent past value. So when the data is updated, the existing value is moved to the column defined to store the previous past value. And the new value is placed into the reportable column. So this allows you the ability to look back and see what was the previous value. So this method is ideally used in situations where there is not too much data to be stored, or the number of changes you want to keep is known for sure. So this method is also suitable if data changes in attribute will affect many other rows of data. Okay, thank you for listening and see you in following sessions.